What's up guys, Gabriel Varga here. I've been hit with a surprising amount of requests recently to talk about David Leduc and his Lethwei sport he competes in. Now, he's been getting a decent amount of publicity over the last couple of years because I believe number one, he was on the Joe Rogan podcast, and number two, he's constantly calling out Buakaw. Now, because he's a fellow Canadian, I'm assuming this is why people keep asking me to talk about him. I've only watched a couple of his fights. In the past, I've done a little bit more research since. So today we're going to dive into David Leduc, what I think about him as a fighter, what I think about his skill level, and I might surprise you guys a little bit today because Canadians and myself in particular, I believe, are known for being fairly positive, but it's not 100% positive today. I don't have only good things to say. Alright guys, before we get into the episode today, I hope everybody out there is healthy, staying happy, able to get back into the gym. Some of the places are starting to ease off on restrictions, which is so lovely. It's just so essential that we are able to work out and do this sport we love. So I really hope everybody is doing fantastic. Now, in regards to David Leduc, the first thing I should say is congratulations to him. He's doing a fantastic job promoting himself, which in my opinion is fairly surprising given the fact that Lethwei, I believe that's how it's pronounced, is not really popular anywhere over here. Like, how many people have been to a Lethwei fight card? I don't even know if it's legal over here. With the headbutts and everything, you're allowed to headbutt somebody. If I didn't mention that already, Lethwei is pretty much Muay Thai, but they don't wear the boxing gloves. They just have hand wraps on and they're allowed to headbutt. It's crazy. I was actually contacted by the same promotion that David Leduc fights for, and they asked me, they said specific, like word for word, we need some marquee fighters from North America. Will you come and compete? And at the time I was signed with Bellator, I said, it's possible. I can see what Bellator wants to say, but I should just tell you straight off, this is how much money I want. This is how much money I'm getting paid. I'm not going to go down in purse to fight in this brutal sport. And in all honesty, I don't think I was really ever considering it. I don't want to fight with no gloves, and I really don't want to deal with headbutts. It just seems a little bit brutal. You're on the inside and the person just goes bump. So it is an entirely different sport, and it is very, very violent in my opinion. And the fact that Dave has been able to build his name through the sport is pretty wild. So again, congratulations to him. But want to say one of the things that I don't quite love is they're always promoting him, or he's promoting himself, I suppose, is the king of Lethwei. People are saying that all the time. You see it everywhere, the king of Lethwei. If you're going to be the king, you're going to be the guy who promotes the sport, you need to be the best. And not just the best in the sense that, okay, I'm winning a decent number of my fights, but technically, when I get on and I watch a fight, if I watch somebody like Rico Verhoeven or Georgia Petrosian in kickboxing, I'd say it's okay to call these guys the king. They look good. They look like they are bringing beauty to this violent sport. Same thing if we're going to talk about boxing. I want to talk the king. You're going to go, okay, maybe Ali or Tyson or Floyd. So not that Dave is not skilled. He must be an incredibly tough guy, an incredibly durable man to compete in this brutal art. But when I get on and I watch him, I go, oh, this is the guy who's the best at this sport. This is the guy that you want to be the king of Lethwei. So all props to him for being able to accomplish that title. But at the same time, I don't think it makes the sport of Lethwei look good because I'm looking at this guy going, man, I don't think this guy would last a couple rounds with the best kickboxers, the best Muay Thai fighters at his weight class. Maybe he can take a punch very well. That's great. He looks like he hits very hard. He does. He looks like he has a lot of power. But once you put the boxing gloves on, everything changes. People can shell up where they can't do that to the same extent when you have these tiny little hand wraps on. And I'm just a stickler for technique. When I see people who are the best in the world, I want them to have the best technique in the world. And to be completely honest, if I saw him in a kickboxing match, I would go, yeah, he's an intermediate level fighter in terms of striking. It looks to be effective, I suppose, since he's hurting people, but it is fairly sloppy, and technically I feel like there's a decent amount of errors. Now, you don't normally hear me criticize people on this YouTube channel, but I also want people to understand, if somebody like him is calling out Buakaw, I feel like you should be calling out Buakaw when you are the best in the world at Muay Thai or kickboxing. This guy won't stand a chance against Buakaw except for the fact that he is bigger. He's definitely bigger than Buakaw by quite a bit. If this guy went up against somebody somewhat his size, let's say somebody like Nicky Holtzkin or Cedric Doumbé, or even somebody at that 155-pound weight class who, really has to cut a lot of weight but could move up to 165, I don't think he would last a round or two with them. It's just my opinion, guys, and like I said, he's a fellow Canadian. I'm very impressed with everything he's doing to build his brand, but for people to see him and go, whoa, this guy's the best Lethwei fighter in the world. He very well might be. It might just come down to endurance, being able to take a beating, being able to hit hard enough to just really rattle people without the gloves. Technically, I'm not in love with his style. But again, one of the big reasons he's getting a lot of notoriety right now is just because he's calling out Buakaw. I don't know why Buakaw would take that fight. Buakaw has nothing to gain from it unless they're just going to pay him a truckload of money. And assuming that Buakaw is still the same fighter that he was 3 or 4 years ago, I just don't see it going well for David Leduc at all. They're totally different skill levels. We have one guy who's good at Lethwei. He's good. I wouldn't say he's even fantastic or great. And then you have one of the best kickboxers and Muay Thai fighters of the generation. Definitely one of the best kickboxers for sure. Like Buakaw in K1 Max was just doing amazing, which is crazy because they even took clinch away from Buakaw after he was ragdolling everybody. So as you guys know, I like to keep things positive on the channel. This is a little bit more of a critical episode. You won't see me do too many of these, but at the same time, I've had so many requests to talk about this fighter. I noticed recently in one of his fights that he had a draw against an older fighter named Cyrus Washington is, I believe, the guy's name. I actually knew of this fighter back when I was climbing the ranks, before I had any fights with K1 or anything like that, before I fought Lerdsila. I knew who he was, and I was like, oh, this guy's pretty good, but he's not an exceptional fighter in the sense that he can be a multiple-time world champion against the best fighters in the world. That's the big thing. People can be a multiple-time world champion, but are you fighting Nikki Holtzkin? Are you fighting Artur Kachenko? Are you fighting the top guys at your weight class? No, I don't think he was. And when he fought David Leduc the first time, I believe they actually had a rematch, but when he fought him the first time, under Lethwei rules, he had a draw against David Leduc, who I'm assuming is in his prime right now. I believe he's younger than I am, and I think he's probably, in the heyday of his career. And he fought an older guy who'd been around competing, I believe, for decades, and in their first fight, could only get a draw. It doesn't look great, in my opinion. If you're going to bring a Muay Thai fighter in out of his discipline to another discipline, he's older, and you're getting a draw against him, I think that speaks to the fact that a lot of the other guys you're beating are probably not the best fighters in the world. Maybe it's hard to get guys to go and fight in Lethwei, because like I said, I probably wouldn't do it unless it was just for a truckload of money. Like, why would I want to go in and deal with headbutts? I just don't see the purpose of that fight style. Anyway, guys, people were asking for my opinion on this fighter, on this topic, so that was it. Guys, if you enjoyed the video, you found it interesting, give it a like. If you have not already, please join the channel, get subscribed, train hard, guys, and I'll see you back here soon for another video.